I got this idea to tell you that you need to do your research, and if you're dating a black man, it is your responsibility to understand the history and the trauma of slavery.
And you was one of your initial classes, one of the first classes you had, you noticed that it was predominantly non-black women who were going in there studying black men.
I started teaching a black male course because it was needed. I noticed I started to get this population of white women.
Yeah.
I don't know why they were there. When I began to kind of ask them, in the hallways, under the, why are you taking this class? And I started to find, oh, well, my boyfriend is, and I want to understand him and his family, or, I'm trying to date some of the men on the basketball team or football team or whatever, but I don't understand them. So another 3 or 4 years after that, I noticed the population shifted from, white women to Latinas, and the Latinas were coming in with the same kind of intensity.
Hey guys, welcome back to At Liminal Period. It's your girl, Chun-Li Shoddy. In previous videos, I've had conversations on why I think successful black men date outside the black community. And I guess the algorithm has been algorithming because I came across this YouTube short earlier today and I just had to share it with you guys. Of course, when I first saw it, I kind of felt some type of way, but I couldn't really pinpoint it. And so I had to do some further digging to see what the context of the conversation was. I came across the entire interview and it was on the YouTube channel by Ches Charday. And she sat down with Dr. Hassan Johnson and they sat down and talked about why black women are losing it when it comes to dating and marrying black men. So without further ado, let's get into it.
So I've been teaching now for about 24 years and I came to Fresno State about 14 years ago. And I started teaching a black male course because it was needed. I'm looking at these young brothers who were getting accepted and a lot of them were, dropping out. A lot of them really didn't have any support structure on how to navigate college. They were having, even the conversations I was listening to in the hallways, I was like, okay, if I don't grab some of these young men, they're not only going to be out of here, they might even be arbitrarily locked up behind things some of them don't understand. So I created this class alongside a student group for black males and began to implement that. And early on, what I found was I had more black women than men, which, numerically is no surprise. That tends to be the case anyway, as far as the enrollment in school. But I started to get fewer and fewer men and more women because my initial training in my doctorate was as a feminist. I hadn't dealt with gender prior to my doctorate. So one of my primary mentors was ex-Black Panther. She was a feminist. And so I came in with that framework. The only way I knew how to deal with gender was through kind of what she taught me. So I'm teaching this black male class using this approach I got in grad school. And I'm watching the numbers of black males dwindle. I'm seeing the black males in my class looking at the ground, just kind of disconnected. And I'm seeing the women more and more excited. And what I realized was that it was becoming a class where the young ladies were using me to finger wag at the men on the campus to kind of nudge them to do what they wanted them to do. So when I started to actually ask the men what their perspectives were, and I started to kind of change the narrative, it was a learning process for me as well as for them.
So just quickly summarizing so far, what Dr. Hassan has said is that he started this class out of necessity. He started a course on black male studies because black men needed direction, especially the ones that he was coming across on college campuses, right? And the thing is, his education and background and his PhD was on black femininity. And so he came into this with a framework and with a lens of feminism. And so instead of being able to actually communicate and address the issues within these young black men that the whole class was started for, it was actually then he saw himself being used as a puppet for black women, or maybe not puppet, but he saw himself as a tool used by black women to coerce black men to doing what they wanted. Okay, and we've seen this time and time again with daytime talk television shows. We see it on Instagram, on podcasts. As soon as black men or men in general start to get behind the mic and start to share how they felt, what did everyone do? Get online, start to dismiss them, tell them that they're just nobodies. And yes, there are plenty of nobodies, myself included, that bought a mic. Fair enough. Fair point, right? But a lot of times, like when you're actually trying to help someone, but you just go into the situation completely dismissing them and their efforts and essentially blaming them for the situation or the issues that they're facing, you're not really going to get the attention and be able to drive that influence as you expected.
It's a learning process for me as well as for them. And after a couple of years, I noticed the women stopped coming. The number of Black women dropped dramatically. The number of Black males started to increase. And then after that, the next couple of years after that, I noticed I started to get this population of white women.
Yeah.
I didn't know why they were there. I didn't know why they were there. And when I began to kind of ask them, in the hallways under the, why are you taking this class? You have to be careful how you do it. And I started to find, well, my boyfriend is Black, and I want to understand him and his family, or I'm trying to date some of the men on the basketball team or the football team or whatever, but I don't understand them. So they were doing research. They're getting A's.
Yeah, very smart, very smart.
It's a weird thing where I got to give A+ to white women in a class on Black males because they are handling all the homework assignments and reading everything to a T. They're asking me about the citations that were made by the author. I'm like, good Lord. But they were serious. They were doing research, and they were serious about it. And
some of them were doing research and trying to understand because they were currently already in relationships with Black men or interested in Black men and wanting to understand them and be able to approach them, right? And then, of course, with everything, there are also women that are maybe in it for a malicious intent, right? They want to trap an athlete on the school team. There is always going to be women like that. It doesn't matter if they're white, Black, brown, Asian. There are good people and bad people with every culture. But I do think it's very interesting to hear that as soon as he switched the way he was approaching the conversation of helping out Black men and assisting them in their growth, the Black women dropped off like flies, right? Black men increased in enrollment, and then you started seeing the introduction of other races of women, not white men, not Asian men, not Hispanic men coming in being interested in Black men. It was white women and Latino women that were interested in understanding about Black men.
I would say, another 3 or 4 years after that, I noticed the population shifted from, white women to Latinas. And the Latinas were coming in with the same kind of intensity, the same kind of questions, the same motivations. They were dating Black men. And this is Fresno. We're in Central California.
Yeah. No.
Black and
Exactly. So in Fresno, Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, there's plenty of cities where interracial and intermingling has already existed and has existed for a while. So again, they're not necessarily trying to, I guess, penetrate into a new market, but they're really just trying to understand the people that they're already dating. And I think that's really important for men and women to just try and understand your partners better.
Man, and this is Fresno. We're in Central California.
Yeah. No.
Black and Latino relationships here are not a strange thing by any measure.
You're literally telling me that you had a class that was dedicated to Black men, where Black women have an opportunity to study their men, understand what they're going through, understand how to relate to them better. And instead of us doing that, you have other women of other ethnic groups, other races going in, taking notes, using that as ammo to get the quote unquote best men out there. Yeah. So it's like, how can you compete with that?
Okay, so I don't know, Ches, and maybe it's just the wording, but this is a part of the original clip that I saw that made me feel some type of way about it, and it is because of the wording, right? Maybe. Yes, there was an opportunity for Black women as well as all women and all men to understand Black men more, right? However, it was white women and Latino women that really leaned into this opportunity. So I don't really see them taking interest in Black men, especially if they're already dating Black men or interested in dating Black men. I don't think that interest should be seen or described as ammo. Okay, and maybe it is ammo because it's another tool in her back pocket that she can whip out understanding, right? Being understanding of someone apparently is ammo nowadays. Doing research and trying to appeal more to that demographic for whatever reason it is. It's like, I guess in my mind, like I've mentioned, I studied business and marketing. appealing to your demographic and your target market is not a bad thing. It's not seen as ammo. Like I described to you guys as SWOT analysis before. When you take a look at your strength, your weakness, your opportunities, and your threats. You do that analysis so that you can overall improve against the competition. So I guess in a way, if you want to call it ammo, let's call it ammo. But I do think of it as a missed opportunity for Black women.
This is based upon what you just said. It's like, this is why they are winning our men. If that is such a big complaint, this is why these other women, white women, Latinas, Asians, this is why they are winning or stealing,
because we're
however you want to put it, our
interested.
men, because they're actually interested in their
Okay,
interest. Like I said, it goes back to, when I asked you a few minutes ago, I was like, why are Black men asking for so little? And then you go in to say, well, they're kind of used to that. They're socialized for that. There's all these complicated dynamics. And if you meet somebody you're asking for breadcrumbs and they give you a sandwich, it's like,
oh yeah, oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
whoa.
And again, this is not just Black men. This is most men. And that's why they're getting their passports and they're getting the F out of America. It's because they're getting breadcrumbs. Women in America, modern day women, boss babes, don't want to make you that sandwich. So you are just going to get breadcrumbs and trust and believe you're going to be paying for that breadcrumb.
No, Patrice O'Neal, one of my favorite comedians, he had a whole bit where he talked about the power of okay, like having women that actually say, okay, can you give me a glass of water? Okay. And he was like, it was mind blowing to hear a woman say it. And as funny as it was, and I remember I would listen to Patrice and all the women in my family, because I'd wait till Thanksgiving. And then I'd sit there and listen to Patrice, and the women would get more and more quiet and laugh less and less. And I would laugh more and more because he was tapping into something that I didn't know I was frustrated about. I didn't know I was curious about. And he was kind of gently raising these concerns. But one of the things he joked about in that moment was, just what it feels like to have somebody that is, not only cooperative, but will happily so, and just something as subtle as that, and so, yeah, when you talk about the different groups of women that were coming to the class and they're involved in deep conversations in the classes about relationships, they're asking questions, it was a whole different dynamic,
Now, do you think the concern was, do you think that it was genuine, or do you think some of it, because I see some in the comments like, oh, they were kind of using it as ammo just for fetishization, but they don't see them as real men deserving of love or respect? I mean, do you think you saw some of that woman using that as a way to try to manipulate better? Do you think there was a genuine?
Like I said, I've been teaching for 24 odd years, and I can tell you the way they came to the discussions, the way they participated, yeah, there was a lot of genuine, kind of behavior, a lot of reflexivity. They're talking about their experiences. They're asking questions with a kind of genuine, kind of sensibility about it. I don't think any of it was really performed in that way. I think what was,
and you also have to remember that college courses are not just easy attendance courses, right? Like typically requires some amount of effort. So if a woman is just using ammo, she would probably take the shortcut. She's not going to enroll in a course, pay for the course, participate in the conversations, write papers on it. There has to be an element of genuine interest in all of this. That is why when I say this is a missed opportunity, it is only a missed opportunity because of the lack of interest. It's not because Black women were not notified that this class was available. They started dropping off when the narrative did not meet what they wanted to believe.
What threw everybody was just that anybody was interested in even having the dialogue. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they were coming to class looking for boyfriends in the class. They were coming to class to learn about Black men because of the Black men they were already dealing with. So, so it was a different kind of sensibility, and there was an earnestness to the dialogues that were happening that even Black men weren't used to. And it was kind of a strange thing. It wasn't negative by any means, but it was different because when Black women were the majority of the class, a lot of it was very argumentative. A lot of it was very critical of Black men. I mean, I remember there was one class very early on where this young man had come out the military. He's over 6'3". He's, well developed muscularly. He's almost done with his degree, and he was a virgin. He was a Christian. He was a virgin, and he mentioned that in class. And the entire class of women went off on him and were trying to emasculate him at every turn. And I actually had to stop them because they weren't about to stop themselves. And it was just like, you know, why would you come to picture that. Picture a class on black women where the majority of the class are black men who come to talk about how horrible black women are. Like when would you see that actually happen? You know?
I think it's really interesting that in this particular conversation, it's a black man trying to help out other black men become better black men, and black women who were enrolled in the class did not find that interesting, did not want to participate and engage in conversations, and therefore left the classroom, left the territory open and available for Becky and Mylene and Susie and Maria to come in. And then you mad. But again, these women are only coming in with genuine interest. So it's like literally as a black man or as any men, if you had that amount of interest from outside community, why wouldn't you explore that? Why? Why wouldn't you?
Had to stop them because they weren't about to stop themselves. And it was just like, you know, why would you come to picture that. Picture a class on black women where the majority of the class are black men who come to talk about how horrible black women are. Like when would you see that actually happen? You know what I mean?
No, would it?
And then everybody's tearing into one woman because she hasn't had sex yet. You know what I mean? It was that kind of dynamic. But the level of low-key hostility, what Kevin used to call low boiling contempt, was so palpable that when that shifted over in the next couple of years, it was a strange thing to notice. Like, so even if there were somehow chameleons that were getting over on us or whatever, the level of hostility and it was far less than what it had been. So it was strange. But I can tell you the class has been an interesting kind of lesson in racial dynamics because white men made their appearance too. And they made their appearance in the form
I stand corrected. They did show up.
And a police detective who came to arrest one of the students. So,
wow.
So if you look at it symbolically, you have white men, black women, and Hispanic and Latina women who have all made their presence felt. And the most hostile were black women and white men to the very idea of studying black men. Right? The military recruiter wanted to take these men out of college and put them in the military. And of course, the detective wanted to arrest somebody. The black women wanted to denigrate the men in the class and finger wag. And then you had white women and Latinas who wanted to take notes and ask questions. So you tell me, who's the most hostile out of that?
Anyways, I wanted to share this interview, but I enjoyed this conversation. I hope I was able to share a little bit of my perspective, even though the focus was on Dr. Hassan Johnson. I did enjoy the conversation. I look forward to speaking again with you guys next time. Bye.